Hello everyone, you're listening to Northern Flights, a Park Pro podcast keeping you up to date with the people, tournaments, and culture of disc golf in Canada and beyond. Consider becoming a patron today at patreon.com/parkpro. Find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by Disc Golf Park. And now your hosts, Andre, Jesse, and Matt.
What's up, everybody? If you're listening to this podcast, then be sure to check out our official relaunch of the podcast, which was released at the same time. That episode, we recorded it back in November, but we didn't release it because of the holidays and other stuff going on. But most of it is still pertinent. And if you're wondering who Matt is, if you're listening to the podcast before and you don't know who Matt is, that's the episode you got to check out. And he's right there on your screen. We highly recommending checking out that podcast. Definitely a lot of information, and get to hear you guys and see you guys again. So it's been a little while even since we recorded that one. How you guys doing?
Well, I've got enough holiday fog that I don't even remember the last one. I definitely didn't get up to no good. But yes, like Matt said, Happy New Year. Life has been good. Holidays were good. Nice, relaxed at home. I actually don't think I've caught up with you guys. I know you were traveling, Andre?
Yeah. I went back to Vernon and got to see my family. And the little one, Juniper, she got to meet her cousins again. And, it was a great time.
Awesome.
Yeah. How about you, Matt?
Yeah, I didn't get up to too much over the holidays. I played a little bit of disc golf and got to visit some family and friends and just had a nice, relaxing, cozy time.
Cozy times are good. And yeah, pretty similar. Just hung out with my parents at their place.
Cool.
Had the fam around and played one day of hockey on the lake. Was kind of nice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the conditions were good. Ice was in good shape despite the warm weather.
Nice. Yeah, and for those that don't know, Jesse and I were located in Invermere, and Invermere actually has some record amount of skating available. I guess they have the longest, I don't know, what would you call it, groomed skating path?
It is the longest outdoor skating track in the world.
Yeah.
Around Lake Windermere. Yeah, it's in the Guinness book and everything. The record hangs in the station pub, right, looking over it, so you can look at the record and look out at all the people having fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a good time. The Nordic Ski Club maintains it, so they actually plow it and maintain it that way, and they set ski tracks on the outside. So if you got someone that wants to go for a cross country ski and you want to go for a skate, you can do them side by side the whole way down.
Yeah, I was joking with Jesse the other day about building, challenging Scott Stokely for the longest hole in the world using that track. So only be available in the winter. But
I like a good skating path. I think there should be more skating paths. Totally. Like an oval's fun and all, but you're just skating around in circles.
Oh, and this one is, you're got the Rockies on one side, the Purcells on the other. It's kind of the most beautiful views you can have. So I think it's worthy of the title that it has, because we took it from the Rideau Canal in Ottawa, I believe. They had the record before us, and it's a lot prettier here than there. I've seen both.
Well, there you go. Today's podcast, we're going to be talking about Thomas's new deal. Obviously, some big news involving one of Canada's top pros. The big Simon news, since we consider Simon a pseudo-Canadian. Obviously, if you haven't heard about that news, you've heard about that news.
Yeah, you live under a rock.
Let's be real. And then we're going to have a little discussion and possibly a debate later. So why don't we just first get into Thomas's new deal? Thomas signs with Thought Space Athletics. He leaves Prodigy, who he's been with for, a couple years now?
Yeah, it's 2?
2 years, I think.
Yeah, I think it's only 2, yeah. 2020 being his last year with Innova, or is it 3 years with Prodigy? I feel silly.
Something like that. I think it's only been the last couple of years, but the Ulti article says after 2 years sponsored by Prodigy, Thomas Gilbert has signed a 2-year endorsement deal with Thought Space Athletics with an option to extend for 5 years. So I didn't know that little detail. And the kind of neat thing about this is that he only has to throw, I believe, 50% Thought Space Athletics, and that kind of gives him some freedom. I believe you read that article, it says that he's going to bag some destroyers, Firebirds in his zone. So, which are I'd say those are pretty good discs for
Pretty good
that,
choices.
that arm.
And not really snubbing much that exists in the Thought Space lineup, except the zone. What's the approach disc from Thought Space? Temple?
Temple. I believe they only have it in the base plastic right now.
Yeah, that could be probably one of the issues. A guy that's playing as much as he would be going through those things on like a weekly basis.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty cool to see him throwing those discs. I'm a fan of Thought Space Athletics, so it's pretty cool to see him sign with one of what most people consider a smaller company, I would say. And what I'm most curious is, what's he going to putt with?
Yeah, that's a good question. I wouldn't be surprised to see him go back to AVRs, and it's not saying he couldn't even keep his day-to-day PA3s he had at Prodigy because of that open bag deal. It seems, though, that they're going to work on a new putter for him right at ThoughtSpace. I'm not sure when that comes out or how long it's going to take.
Yeah.
I know they always have optimistic deadlines for these things, but when you're making a disc specifically for a player, there's a lot of different iterations and testing that goes on.
And who knows if it's a throwing putter or a putting putter, right? So.
Oh yeah, that's true. It is kind of a weird spot if you're into putting putters with ThoughtSpace, because the Muse is a very specific space. I know Matt and I probably got some at Nationals there. Did you end up getting one, Matt?
I did not get a Muse, no.
Oh, you can have one of mine. It was in the Am Players pack anyway. They had the UV reactive ones that change color in the sunlight, but it's got such a rounded nose on it. It doesn't really feel like any other putter I've ever held before, and it doesn't really hold your finger up if you're someone that likes to rest more of their finger on the rim instead of hook it a little bit. Not for me, but I know Heckbert putts with them.
I think I've tested them before, and I've compared the profile, and it's actually, the profile is very similar to a Luna. So if you putt with Lunas, that would be the one that you could possibly move towards.
Conveniently one behind us. It is actually fairly similar, not going to lie. Oh my goodness, we've got them all. Yeah, there's still something different about it. For those of you that watch the podcast, now we're going to do a parting line height comparison on camera here. Very close, but they still do feel different, and I think there's a bit of a swell in the underside of the Muse. But like I said,
if that's your kind of disc,
maybe he's a fan of that, and that's going to be a throwing putter.
What was he putting with the Prodigy?
PA3s. So that's a beaded putter, flat top. And I think that's because he was coming from putting with KC AVRs at Innova. And that's kind of the closest match with the big beads, yeah.
Yeah, should be interesting. Definitely one to watch. You got anything on this signing there, Matt?
I think he was a better player throwing Innova discs. I think he had a bit of a down year. I think he was only signed for 1 year if I'm looking at the contracts, right? Just 2022. I might be wrong, though. But I felt like his putting especially fell off a little bit last year. And I think it could be a good move for him.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good move for ThoughtSpace because he's, everybody likes a big arm. And Thomas Gilbert is a big arm. And he's also, a great personality. I think he's going to represent that brand really well. And I think, really good signing. And I'm excited to see him throw destroyers and I don't know all the ThoughtSpace discs, but all of those ones too.
Yeah. Pathfinders. I bet I'll throw Praxis as a throwing putter as well.
Yeah, in the article it says he's throwing Praxis. They go far.
They're too good. They're too good of a disc. And ThoughtSpace Athletics, that's not the only signing they made. They also signed outside of Canadian, outside of the Canadian news here. We got Maria Oliva, I believe, signed with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they re-upped Matt Bell and they re-upped Eric Oakley as well. Obviously, both on mixed bags as well, and a few other people as well. I think they made a splash this year. They're throwing their money around, so it's always kind of nice. I think that's good for the players too. It's just like kind of one more option, and we'll kind of get into this a little bit more later. But that's just the thought space. My take on the thought space.
Yeah, I think of all those ones, I don't think anything was that surprising, other than Maria Oliva, because for those that don't know, her current partner is Luke Sampson with Castoplast, and everybody thought she was going to Castoplast. And then boom, she's at Thought Space.
Crazy.
But I think it fits with her overall like image and vibe, and I think it'll
Totally.
be a really good fit for her.
Totally. And especially if she can throw a mixed bag as well. So we don't know the details on that one.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah. And the other big news, obviously coming out in the last week or so, is Simon Lizotte is leaving Discmania.
Say it ain't so.
Yeah. I mean, these rumors were going around towards the end of December there, and I didn't believe them. I'll admit it. I didn't believe them. I didn't think it was possible, but here we are. The announcement's been made. Some very heartfelt posts by both parties. If you haven't checked those out, definitely worth checking those out on YouTube. I watched Simon's, and he was like, it almost seemed like he was close to tears at some point. So
There's a couple cuts in there where you can kind of tell you might have got a little too choked to keep going. But before I say more on this, I want your takes because I have rabbit holed this one really hard, and I could talk about it for the entire podcast. So,
well, maybe we might.
please, somebody go ahead on their thoughts on this.
Go ahead, Matt.
My first thought was that Thought Space Athletics would be a good fit for him, like in a partnership kind of role. If I'm any brand, he's like the number one person that you can have representing your brand, as much as Paige Pierce, Paul Macbeth, Kristen Tatar, Ricky Wysocki. I think he's in that half dozen players that really moves a market around discs. Eagle McMahon too. And my first thought was Thought Space, because then he could still rep some of those Prodigy discs, or some of those Discmania discs, and they could build an entire brand around him as a partner. But seeing how he's talking about never throwing those Discmania discs ever again, my guess is that he's going to a big manufacturer that has capacity, because whoever he goes to can't start selling Simon Lizotte discs and then have to buy 4 more machines overnight. Like, there has to be a company that has a manufacturing capacity in place, ready to go for like week 1. And so I was, I've heard the rumors about MVP, but then I was looking at the Discraft lineup, and if any brand understands the impact that 1-star player can make on their marketing, it's got to be Discraft. Like, they're the ones who have the numbers around how many discs have moved since a couple of their big acquisitions. And they don't have a huge team of players either. And so would it surprise you if, they opened up the bank and cornered the market on, 3 of the 6 most marketable players on the planet? I don't know. Wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. I agree with all of those points. I will say that I actually still do believe it's probably going to be MVP. There's rumors going around that it might be a mixed bag, and I just don't see that as being possible, or well, maybe not possible. It's definitely possible, but I don't see that as being the selection, because, like you said, he said he wouldn't be throwing those discs anymore. If he was throwing a mixed bag, I can guarantee you that he would have a few Discmania molds in there because of the familiarity. So, but that's not to say it's ruled out. But I do believe I don't know. Maybe this is just something that I like. For those of you that don't know, MVP was the first rumored place that he was going. That was what the news broke. It was rumored that Simon Lizotte was going to leave Discmania for MVP. It all started on Reddit, or depending on who you ask. But it's interesting. And I think the only reason I want to see him go to MVP is because they are another one of my favorite brands. And I think it'd just be cool to see him throwing those discs, throwing gyro. Like, I feel like that kind of matches his YouTube brand. Like, I don't know, it would be a huge move for MVP. I think, like, I agree that they need the capacity to be able to put out those discs. I think MVP's there. They bought new machines. They had to support Conrad's Worlds, and I think Conrad's contract's up like next year as well. So, if he doesn't resign there, then that's more money that they can throw at Simon, or maybe they accounted for that. But I think it makes sense for one of these smaller brands to offer a crap ton of money to Simon Lizotte because he's going to make that money back for that company. So for MVP,
He would like double their sales.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's crazy. Jesse?
Yeah, how far down this rabbit hole do we go?
So most of what you guys said is what I was going to say anyway, so you don't have to go too crazy. I agree that he said he was getting all emotional. I'll never throw these discs again, kind of stuff. So I don't think the open bag thing will be happening for him. I also don't. Well, okay, we'll restart. I think it was about a month and a half ago. There was a cryptic post by the fake PDJ of 4 years for $4 million, is all it said. It was also around the time that Anthony Barella announced he was leaving Innova. I don't think Anthony Barella is $1 million a year player, so I don't think that post is about him. The only other person I think that has that level of value right now is Simon, if you're not talking about Ricky and Paul, because they're locked up. So who has that level of a bag to, hand off to him? I don't think ThoughtSpace Athletics has that kind of cash flow. So the thoughts that I have heard, if we ignore the fake PDJ post, is that if it was a ThoughtSpace deal of some kind, it would be an ownership stake in the company, 25% of the company plus XYZ.
Yeah.
They have worked together in the past. They're, very close to one another in Massachusetts. I just don't think ThoughtSpace is willing to give up any of their company, and they don't have the cash flow to pay him at that level. Just kind of the fact of life thing. They are also on the up and up big time right now. Like ThoughtSpace is very much like the hot ticket. The artwork is great. The discs are good. It's just not the right time for them. I think they can grow into having players like that, but they're doing a good job by having smaller marketable people like Thomas.
And they still have to rely on somebody making their discs for them. And if all of a sudden you're a severe competitor, maybe you don't offer as good manufacturing terms.
Exactly. Which the people that make their discs are MVP, so we can do the MVP thing right now. They have, in like the world of star power, the most bare bones pro team of any major manufacturer. They have really nice, great people on that team, but they're not paying out huge salaries. Throughout COVID and throughout disc golf boom, they reinvested in themselves huge. New machines like crazy. Their facilities are fantastic. Like a couple of years prior to that, they were using the Maple Valley Plastics, which is the MVP acronym, if you didn't know that. I believe that is Brad and Chad Richardson's father's injection molding plant, which made auto parts for, Michigan automakers. They got their own facility. They got their own machines. They doubled down. Whisper, I know some things I shouldn't know about it. I know that they probably have the best manufacturing situation in any of the disc golf companies. This year, I think we're seeing a little bit of a slowdown in sales and things because that big COVID bubble is kind of slowly starting to pop. Now they don't have to invest in more machines to keep up with production. They can put some of that money back into the team. And they have definitely had a mantra, like I said before, of good people. And Simon kind of fits the build everywhere. If you want to play devil's advocate with this Discraft thing, I think the opposite of you, Matt. I think their team's actually fairly deep. When you look at the whole roster, just like Innova as well, they have huge rosters. And they have players already getting paid these $1 million a year contracts. I don't know if they can afford to or if it's the best place to put their money when you've already got Paul Macbeth and Brody Smith that move discs like crazy for you to do that. However, to counter my own point on this, we saw the Discraft Elite team have a series of cuts this year, right? Andrew Presnell went from Elite to the Tour team. So did Ben Calloway and one other.
Yeah, it's escaping me.
Yeah, and it's escaping me as well. So there's nothing saying that couldn't be a reshuffle and a salary cut to those guys to make room for another big dog coming in. So I won't say
and
no.
We don't know if Brody's playing there this year either.
We don't know if Brody's playing there.
We don't know.
But
he's probably going to play.
He's probably going there. I don't think Discraft wants to give up those sales. No. If we want to talk about Brody for 2 seconds then, because I think we've kind of dealt with everything we can say about Simon's contract directly at the moment.
I think so, yeah.
Brody did post that picture of him with
Yeah.
the mixed bag discs on the ground and like, haha, testing out new discs picture. And it kind of makes you wonder if he's just trying to get more buzz around his name because it's great for sales, or if he's legitimately exploring other options.
Yeah, I mean, on Brody, just real quick.
Yeah, go.
The only other option I think is that maybe he just goes full time foundation, promotes foundation alone. I mean, I think that would be huge for them because he can take literally any disc and get freaky branding, dark horse branding. On that,
I'm going back in on Brody. That pile of discs, fine tooth comb, looked at it. The one Innova disc he had already had Innova team stamp wings on it. Something to think about for you. And the other thing with Foundation, real quick, is that how much market share do you think they have in the US? Because it's not somewhere I've ever bought discs from, but you have to think that Infinite and OTB are the two big dogs in there. And Foundation's not even the conversation for third, really.
I think you'd be surprised though, because well, I think they're marketing themselves, I think, more in the media side of things. Like they have all their podcasts and all their YouTube, and I'm personally not the biggest fan of some of those guys, but yeah, I think they're bigger than they get credit for, and also Worlds is going there in 2024, and while they're not directly responsible for anything there, it's in their backyard, and you can bet that they're going to have a presence at Worlds. So, I mean, that alone says that they're going to do something. I don't know.
Yeah, no, you're right about the media thing. I don't take in any of their content, so maybe I downplay the value of that a little bit.
I only do it when I don't have literally anything else to listen to.
Shots fired from Andre's basement at the biggest disc golf podcasters.
Yeah, we're not going to be affiliated with them after this podcast. No. Yeah, it's very interesting. You got anything else on those signings there, Matt?
I'm curious about Innova as well. I think they're starting to come around to this idea of you want the handful of players that move discs instead of 20 different pros just having, because for a while there was only, two really major disc manufacturers, and so you were probably sponsored by one or the other of Innova and Discraft, and they've sort of been holdouts in that idea for a long time of let's just have 100 people with our shirts on their back. And I think they're probably coming around to this idea of, there's only a handful of players that really move discs. So it wouldn't surprise me if they kind of start going more in that direction of paring down the team in favor of having, real big names.
No, I agree. That's like Calvin re-signed this year, and there's always these like rumors you hear about like Innova doesn't pay their players and blah, 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 blah. And I'm going to tell you from the little industry knowledge I have, that is not true. That's just what all these new guy Discraft fanboys are saying because Paul moved one time. If a guy at the Calvin Heimberg level is re-signing with them, it's not because they didn't get paid. That said, to pay Calvin, I do think they trim the fat on some of those guys that were top 50 pros that weren't, like you said, not moving discs and stuff. There's got to be a reason a guy like Scott Withers that was with Innova for a million years goes to Discraft, and now we'll talk about in a second to Clash Discs. And they double down on guys, like I said, like Calvin, whose performance and personality moves discs. The Heimberg Destroyer must be one of the best-selling. Sexton Firebird is the best-selling signature disc of all time. Fight me if you have another opinion. And like Greg Barsby swag sells frisbees.
Mm-hmm.
Owns Scoggins putting, being 40 plus and tuning up all the young guys, sells frisbees.
Yeah, and she just re-signed as well. She's part of that big re-signing.
Mm-hmm.
For those that don't know, Innova signed most of their top players, including the two Europeans, Evelina Salonen and Henna Blumros.
Mm-hmm.
Both to 3-year contracts, so that's really big. And Innova is kind of curbing that idea that they're not paying up. And I think where that whole idea comes from is these sort of emerging people. Innova lost a lot of players. They're not top tier players. They're sort of B tier and even C tier players. And my theory behind this is that when you're coming up, and especially given the age of disc golf in general, Innova was always kind of like the cream of the crop. They were the guys that everyone wanted to be sponsored by. So you're seeing these people that are taking these sponsorships from Innova over the last few years. And then all of a sudden they're starting to make a name for themselves. And Innova's like, well, here's your contract. It's the same as last year kind of thing. And they're like, well, I think I can make some more money elsewhere. And then they're kind of taking those deals. So I don't know. That's my theory.
All of a sudden, you go from having 2 Mandahanos to having no Mandahanos.
Yeah. But, I mean, Valerie's still a free agent. So.
I would say they might have one Mondahano soon.
Yeah.
But honestly, if we're going to talk about FPO for a second, I think their roster is pretty well fleshed out. Like, Kat Merch is one of the
100%.
most upward trending FPO in the whole scene right now. Like I said, Owen is killing it. She's definitely like the 40-plus GOAT and a big competitor in FPO. And if she's not the 40-plus GOAT right now, they've got Jen Allen and Juliana Korver. Like, that's pretty intense.
And Owen is like probably the most she's practically the Simon Lazard of marketability on the FPO side. She's hilarious. Everyone loves her. Yeah, that's huge for them. And then as far as talent goes, they definitely still have the best FPO side. Especially if Solonen and Bloomrose can figure out their putting.
Yeah, well, that's one thing. And also, people kind of sleep on them because through COVID, they didn't travel back for tournaments very often.
No.
Like, even Kristen played more than, like, a significant amount more than them, but not a ton. I think if we can get those two on a full-blown tour, they can get comfortable playing under that pressure because – like, Evelina Salonen is a fantastic athlete. I know enough that she's playing hockey and a million other sports. She's not missing 10-foot putts from lack of skill, right? She's just not.
Yeah.
It's pressure, it's whatever, and I think a full-time touring to get into that groove, and she can really make an impact.
Can do some damage next year for sure.
Because her and Henna are the two farthest throwers in FPO. Yeah. Easily. And the way that the courses are going, they're getting more open, longer. It's really going to be built for their game.
Yeah.
And Evelina's got arguably as good a forehand as Kristen Tatar.
Yeah. Other than the putting yips where she like 5 putts from 15 feet, which I'm laughing because it hurts because it's me. But yeah, outside of that, she's got some of the greatest throwing skill in the sport.
Yeah.
Totally. We can move on to Texas.
I'm saying probably Texas. A good thing. Otherwise, I'm going to go in and never stop on these other ones.
Clash.
I would just state I don't believe Alexis Mandujano has a contract either. I believe both Mandujano's contracts. I think expired.
Alexis is discraft through and through. I think I just saw that she was also listed as has a Ledgestone sponsorship, so she's still discraft.
Oh yeah, having a Ledgestone sponsorship is
pretty much
means we like you even more at Discraft.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so we can move on to Texas. Clash makes a splash.
Texas? Clash? Isn't Clash in Europe?
Pretty sure Clash is Texas, isn't it?
Lone Star is Texas.
Lone Star, Mint, and I thought Clash was as well.
Mint is Michigan, isn't it?
No, Mint is Texas. We'll look this up.
Ask Siri.
What do you guys have on Clash Disc?
I thought Clash was Europe for sure. And I was talking to my friend Max about this, and he was saying that Clash sponsors a ton of players in Europe. Unless they're just like Europophiles. But we're going to find this out before we go on any further here.
Well, I mean, they made some huge signings. They signed Eric Oakley, James Proctor, Erica Stinchcomb, Scott Withers, Evan Smith, Jacob Curtis. I don't know Jacob or these other people.
Gillis McDougall. You don't know Gillis McDougall? What's wrong with you? I'll let you. Yeah. See, contact.
there you
Boom.
go.
Finland. Told you.
There you go.
I can run
Where
through
did they
there,
get
guys.
Texas
So.
from?
Yeah. Texas is Lone Star. And that's kind of the other person that's made a splash recently.
Yeah.
And Mint Discs, I'm sure, is Michigan.
I was pretty sure Mint, and that's those are the ones I think I was getting confused on because I'm Austin, Texas. There you go. That's the
Or
one
is
I
it?
was thinking.
Shoot.
And Clash has a mint as well.
Well, there you go.
Does Mint have a Clash?
They have a disc called the Mint. They should.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I'm thinking Michigan because it's molded by MVP,
Yeah.
which is in Michigan.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. So Clash from Europe and Mint Disc from Texas, both making a splash. We just talked about the Clash guys and girls. Is there any notables from there?
I guess the
like?
notable thing was that like Erica Strinchcombe just straight up got cut from Westside. Yeah,
Yeah.
which was kind of a big deal, and I think there's a little bit of like a keep on trucking kind of Instagram post about it. I personally don't know anything about her other than the fact that she had a signature series sword that was a pretty okay disc.
Mm-hmm.
But she's not really like a top 10 player. She's out there grinding, but she's not making too many lead cards for sure.
Yeah. And Mason Ford was the big Mint signing, which is big for them and also probably causes speculation with Valerie as well. I would think.
You always have to think, but like we said with Maria and Luke Sampson, I thought she was going to Castoplast, but that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
Mint Discs being quite a small company, maybe the smallest of any of the ones listed here. So for them to have a guy like Mason Ford on their roster is definitely going to help with their exposure and growth. And obviously, well, not obviously, Mason probably got a contract upgrade after his Music City Open win with Innova when he jumped over to DD. They probably paid him more. I didn't see him do much this year, so maybe DD wasn't willing to re-up at the same value or give him what he thought he was worth, and Mint Discs was a little more willing to play the game.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes, especially because, I mean, Valerie herself is due for a big payday, so who knows, maybe there's some attachment there that maybe extended to Mason a little bit too and put a sour taste in his mouth as well, so you never know.
Yeah.
But you got anything on this there, Matt?
I'm excited for Mason Ford to be a big fish in a small pond.
Yeah, he's talented.
I'm not sure he really moves the needle elsewhere.
No.
So it's always cool when there's somebody that's, the face of a brand like that. He's a good thrower. And then Clash discs. I really like their plastics. Did you say the Clash is molded in the States, Jesse? Or do they come straight from Finland?
Finland, yeah. They mold their own discs.
Yeah. They're really nice. I've got a couple of Clash discs, and their plastic is as good as anybody's.
I haven't seen one. No, that's a lie. Because I was making fun of you guys about not knowing Gillis McDougall, but he was on the lead card at Nationals. So we walked behind him and watched him throw some Clash discs. But no, I've never felt one, and it seems like their business model is kind of similar to the Castoplast thing. Less discs, good plastic, send them as we get them, don't force it. And yeah, the product quality, all reports have been that they're quite good.
Yeah. And they've got, their players are, like they've got players that are sort of visible, like Erica Stinchcombe, who does a lot of commentary. She's one of the hot geese. And Eric Oakley, who's a big personality in the game, but maybe isn't finishing at the top of the leaderboard every week. And then they've got Scott Withers and James Proctor, who are just understated ballers, like guys who can really throw but haven't necessarily toured full time. So they're sort of I kind of see this approach of like, you've got some public faces to get out there and get your brand out there, and then you've also got guys that when they show up to tour are going to show up on lead cards sometimes. So I'm guessing value contracts in the big scheme of things, and a promising team for a smaller manufacturer.
Yeah, I agree. James Proctor is silently very good. It's something that not a lot of people even, not a guy that like casual disc golf fans would even know about, I don't think. But you can find him on the Portland Open coverage from this year. He was on the chase card with Macbeth and somebody else, and yeah, he had some highlight throws. But he's just like a quiet school teacher type. He's not that Eric Oakley personality, but he will, I think, be able to put up some finishes that gain them some attention. And Scott Withers, we know in our part of the world because he comes up and beats everybody up at the BC Open and goes back. But before he swapped to Discraft, his rating was like, I don't want to say it was like 1037. He was in the like top 5 for rated players, but he only really played in Oregon and Washington and sometimes in British Columbia. But he also won like 80% of the tournaments he played. He had the Oregon market pretty much locked up. And then ratings went down when he went back on tour with Discraft. I know it wasn't his best years he ever had, but I do think he's capable when he goes on a full tour, like you said, to show up on some lead cards, get his name out there, a little bit of positive advertising. And he also works with, it's like Big Brothers Big Sisters Oregon or something like that. So he's always doing community stuff. So yeah, great guy to have on that team. And then, like you said, who else we have on Clash here? Yeah, Proctor and Eric Oakley, both signing with ThoughtSpace and Clash Discs.
Yeah.
On like a 50% kind of gig, which may be something new to talk about. We haven't seen contracts like that in the past really ever.
No.
Unless they're like Nico Gateway types or putter only contracts. But yeah.
We'll talk about a little bit more about that after. Just going to quickly rip through the last of these signings, especially because there's some that actually just came out today. So this one didn't come out today, but possibly, Gavin Babcock signs with Discmania. He's got a lot of potential. When this happened, there was speculation that he's going to replace Simon and the Crush Boys conversation. He's not quite to that level, obviously, but Babcock is, if you haven't seen him, you watched him on YouTube scoring.
Shut up. He's not replacing Simon in anything. Get out of here.
But the dude is jacked.
He's jacked and he's great. He had a sick ace on coverage for what it was, $5,000 on the skins match. But maybe more so that if they're losing Simon, they've got some salary cap space to pick up really solid players like that.
Yeah. And then quickly these other three here. Silver Lot signs with Latitude, and Rebecca Cox also extends with Latitude. And then this one I didn't see until now. Maria Oliva also with Infinite Disc. So padding that ThoughtSpace Athletic sponsorship with Infinite Disc, which you see pretty often, especially I think Eric Oakley was kind of the guy that sticks out to me as being the one that kind of started that whole ThoughtSpace Infinite move. So yeah. On that note, this, like you just mentioned before, it's really interesting to see these sort of, not limited to one supplier. And I want to get your guys' take on this. Do you think this helps? It obviously opens up your bag, and how much do you think that affects their ability to execute on the course as far as disc selection goes?
I think these guys can throw anything at their level, honestly. You could have a Whammo or a Lightning or a Gateway sponsorship, and these guys are still doing really well. Yeah, Matt, if you've got more on this, I don't think it affects much on course performance-wise.
I think the putter, if I was good at disc golf, I think the putter is really where it would make the biggest difference. Because, like most of these companies, once you get to about 7 or 8 discs in a lineup, you have every disc that every pro is going to throw, right? But the putter really makes a difference, having that minute difference in feel. Like, how many of us have gone through 4 or 5 different putters? I know I have. I've tried a bunch of different putters, and then one putter just feels so good for a year or two, and it's just like I couldn't imagine putting with anything else. So to me, that would be the biggest difference, is that Maria Oliva can pick whatever putter in the whole world of putters. So you never have to be second guessing yourself, with a 30-footer to win a tournament. Be like, man, I missed that PA3 or whatever it is, you know?
Oh,
So to
okay,
me, that
well,
would be the biggest difference.
so on that note, though, what's as far as the monetary value of these contracts go? What do you guys think is more valuable? Signing for X amount, like a big dollar amount, with one retailer, or sorry, not retailer, with one manufacturer, or seeking out these sort of smaller sponsorships and stacking them on top of each other. It's obviously a little bit more work, but you're starting to see player agents coming into the picture on this stuff too. But what do you guys think is more valuable?
Go for it, Matt. I've monologued enough.
I don't know. I think if you're one of those top players, like if you're an Eagle McMahon, the value that you bring is love of the brand. You know, like people who like the Crush Boys will buy every single Discmania disc, regardless of whether Simon and Eagle were throwing it. And so I think for those players, there's always going to be more money in a specific disc manufacturing brand. And I think that's why you don't really see the top 10 players throwing an open bag and representing retailers and boutique manufacturers. But if your only option is like, hey, we'll pay for your entry fees this year and, you know, throw in a stipend if you know, come top 3 in a tournament, then yeah, having multiple sponsors is probably a good way to go if what you're trying to do is, you know, make ends meet and survive touring on the air. But we never get to see any visibility into any of these deals. So I just, you know, I rely on my insider information from Jesse. That's where I get all my info these days. So
Jesse, the insider,
um,
Park Pro insider.
yeah.
Oh.
And I mean, like, why not? Why not do this Scott Stokely thing? Like, if you're known for throwing this specific disc for these kind of shots, and you've got like 6 discs that everybody knows you throw, like, why not have one from every manufacturer and get a little piece of the pie from all of them, right?
No, yeah, I think you're onto something there. And the only thing I would add to that is that, like, for these, what I'm going to call mid-end players, right? Maria Oliva is not Paige Pierce, Kristen Tatar. If, let's say, Innova's offering her $100,000, which they probably are not, but it's a nice round number, and she can get 60 from ThoughtSpace and then 60 from Infinite, she's still ahead. And I think it's also helpful for the smaller manufacturers who don't have the cash flow to get a full-blown contract with one of these guys without allowing them to seek other help. Or, if we use ThoughtSpace again, ThoughtSpace, what we know is they have very, very beautiful artwork. And so if you have a signature disc with ThoughtSpace, I've got a feeling it would sell like hotcakes if they, you know, then maybe you've got your 50, 60 flat salary from someone that's not so flashy, or someone like Infinite that doesn't even, well, they do have their own discs, but not at the same level. And then the ThoughtSpace one might be a little bit more about, you know, kickback on sales, things like that. Infinite Discs says, do whatever you want. Here's 40 grand. Go have fun. ThoughtSpace says, here's a bag of discs and we'll pay for your tournaments, but you'll also get all the profits out of your signature disc. And that might have a big potential upside with a company like that. Not a lot of risk for ThoughtSpace because they don't lose any money if it goes poorly, but also potential for big upside if, you know, your own merchandise pops off.
Yeah, a little bit of food for thought there.
Also, this idea of mixed bags is not actually that new. I mean, Innova players used to be able to throw anything that Innova manufactured, right? So they were mixing in Discmania products. And then when Infinite started making discs, Innova players were, and I believe still are, like I think Joel Freeman throws a couple of Infinite branded products.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Prodigy started out and they didn't have a full disc lineup, like Ricky Wysocki was the big Prodigy guy putting with AVRs. And they would put Prodigy stamps on, you know, players' discs in the early days. So it's not a new concept.
I got to talk about the Prodigy thing. I can't let that slide. Because Rick won Worlds throwing a Firebird for half of his shots with a big Prodigy stamp on top. It was not publicly known that it was a Firebird. It was supposed to be a Prodigy disc. And it's in, is it in Brian Earhart's podcast or something where they interview Paul? And Paul said that when Ricky won, he got up there and did his speech, as is his duty to his sponsor, about how he won because his equipment was so superior and Prodigy discs were so great and everything like that. And he's looking
That's
over,
why they
and
were paying him.
it's the same run of Firebird as Paul threw. They threw the same disc on every shot, and they pull something like that. So I don't call that mixed bag. I call that some shady dealings at the time. But no, you're right. Yeah, and you even forgot Millennium, and we're both in the Scorpius train. So
And Millennium. I love Millennium.
you cut me deep, Shrek. You cut me real deep.
Do I need to grab my stack of Scorpii
Yes.
off the shelf? I'll do it.
But yeah, no, you're right. But also, like the Infinite ones, I don't think any of them are new molds. The Scarab's a new mold. Actually, it's a AVR top and a VTech beaded AVR bottom. But whatever, that's garble.
Yeah.
But like their discs are just, the Eagle L mold is in service there full time. The Coyote mold is in service there full time. So
More and more of the old Discmania stuff. Which,
yeah.
side note, going back to the Simon thing, if I was Innova and I had a bunch of money, I would sign Simon and have him only throw all the old Discmania products.
Biggest
Just
kick in the nuts you could give 'em.
Hawkeyes or whatever they're calling the FDs, the CD2, which turned into an Infinite product, and call it the Simon line. Whoever signs Simon, like they got to have a line of discs called the Simon line.
Yeah,
you got to do it.
Another big brand making some noise out there is Lone Star Discs. You might have heard of them. They were, for lack of a better term, they call it the Ranger team. They signed a bunch of amateurs to their Ranger team. It's essentially like the same thing as Prodigy's Street Team. All these companies have these sort of underlings.
These, like when you say that their henchmen are out there.
Yeah. These amateur players that they're roping into throwing their discs, and they get some discs and a discount out of that. So it's a good business move by them. But they've also made some big signings in Lisa Fakis and Robert Burridge, and obviously Nico and Emerson Keith was the other big one. So they got some money to throw around, and from what I hear, they're similar to what MVP was. They have their own injection. They had their own injection molding machines prior to becoming a disc golf company. They are in the oil industry, being from Texas. That makes sense. And they were building parts for the oil industry. And I guess last year they designated one of their machines to building discs, and it was way more successful than they thought it would be. And I think they're upping their game and actually investing a lot of money into it. You can listen to different podcasts. I think they did a little tour of the podcast circuit, and you can get to know them a little bit more, which is kind of interesting thing. So they're bringing something different to the table, and it's kind of cool to see. Bringing more competition and more money into the sport is always, I think, a good thing. So.
Again, I can monologue about Lone Star for a while, so Matt, now's your time.
Please do. Please do. I don't have a ton of thoughts aside from, I'm going to miss those Emerson Keith Explorers. That was a nice disc.
Yeah, the Explorer. Yeah, ripping off T-Birds.
Yep.
No, yeah, Lone Star, something interesting that I was told the other day is they find themselves able to be very successful. Like in their own head, they think they will be doing very well. And one of those reasons is that they have their own metal CNC milling equipment on site, which means they can make molds right there, test them, recondition them, everything like that. As far as I know, every other disc golf manufacturer outsources their metal milling to a dedicated CNC shop, which means there's potential that if you need a mold reconditioned or a new mold tweaked or something like that, you're sending it off, you're waiting, there's lead time, there's queues you're in, and it's likely to let Lone Star hit the ground running really hard. That said, do they have that much experience making golf discs? I don't know, but maybe after some growing pains that will change. The other thing I was going to say is that Ranger team, the one they call it, the street team type deal, is very clever from them because I believe it's, what is it, 4 free discs and then like a 20 or 30% off discount.
And you have to throw only Lone
No,
Star.
no, it's not only Lone Star.
Oh, really?
It's majority Lone Star. I think you have to bag like 80% Lone Star or something like that, but it's not complete. But we started doing the math on this. So 4 discs, which cost you to make for like $6 per unit tops. So you're giving someone $24 plus the cost of a shipping envelope. Let's, call it $40 tops by the time you do something else for them. Then the discount they're getting is not as much as cost. So the discount if they buy more, Lone Star will profit off of and make their $25 back if they have to fill their bag with discs. And so say they only play with 4 discs and they only lose $25 per sponsored player. I heard something in the realm of like 500 players or something got sponsored.
That's a lot of
Let's
discs.
do some math. What's 25 times 500? 20 times 5...
12.5 grand.
Huh? Yeah. It's like $1,250 or something. Am I crazy?
$12,000.
12,000.
Yeah, I'm bad at math.
I just typed it in a calculator.
Oh, there you go.
Never do math.
At least I got the numbers right. I just missed a decimal place.
Yeah.
Anyway, when you think
Which
about
for
what
a marketing expense
is nothing. It's nothing.
That's like one, 50th rated player.
Exactly. And now you've got, like we said, you've got 600 little Lone Star henchmen running to every C tier and league in the country for the cost of Emerson Keith's sock budget for the year. Like, it's crazy. Yeah. I'm glad people are excited. I'm glad there's probably some people there that just want their 4 free discs and they might be taking advantage of them. But they can afford to be taken advantage of at this point. Even if those 4 discs are just in the wild, get thrown into a lake and some kid scoops them up and he's got one in his bag later, it's super aggressive marketing. And I think it has potential for them to really make an impact this year if it goes well.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is they also, like, in addition to that, they also have the initial backing. Being in the oil industry, there's money in that company.
Oh yeah.
So they don't have a bottom dollar that they have to make. They don't have that they have to sell this in order to be successful. This is like a pet project for them, mm-hmm. and it's being successful. It is being successful early. The other thing I heard through one of these podcasts that I heard was that their plastic, they don't have supply issues or anything because they are in the oil industry. They get all their plastics, from probably a lot of the same sources and some different ones. But they claim that their plastic doesn't beat in as much as other plastics. So I thought that was kind of interesting as well. And I don't know. It's very, very fascinating stuff. It'll be interesting to see where they go from here.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot more to talk about with Lone Star. Like you said, there's a lot of money behind it. But when there's money behind it, there's good business people behind it. So if it does end up being a losing endeavor, I wouldn't be surprised to see Lone Star close its doors in 2 years if it wasn't profitable, right? I'm sure they love disc golf as much as the next guy, but they aren't going to let it bury their business if it doesn't go well. It's not going to bleed money. The other thing is that the players that they're sponsoring are those with questionable reputation in the scene. And I'm going to leave it at that. There's not a lot of love for Nico anywhere, and there's, less than you'd expect for Emerson Keith. What that means, like, for the larger visibility of the brand and marketing outside of the places that have the, Ranger team on the ground, I don't know what it's going to do for their sales.
Yeah, but you look at even Nico, you look at what he did, because he was with Clash last year, I think. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, I knew that. I didn't know all these other guys were with Clash. I knew Nico was. So,
did you buy any Clash discs?
No.
Nope, neither did I.
No. Of course not.
So
I don't buy Innova either, though, so.
Fair.
But, I think Nico is, as far as maybe not the best person to align your values or views with, but as far as getting your name out there, I think Nico's a good guy for that.
Yeah, and we our opinions are in beautiful Western Canada, and
Yeah.
that these guys are in Texas, and their culture is obviously a little bit different down there, and maybe it is a good fit for them. I don't know.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Yeah, that was a good discussion. I do have, we're running a little long here, but that's fine. We got one little last game here. It's something that I'm hoping we can keep going with throughout the year.
We have to do this tonight.
And yeah, we do. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for a debate. This is a game that we thought up in the early off season. Essentially, what's going to happen is one of us is going to be the person that hands out these debate topics, and I will be that person today, and I'll be assigning player of the year is what we're discussing, and so I am assigning, whether you like it or not, I will be assigning Matt the part.
Wait, we're just gonna give up the whole artifice of two people organically debating a topic. Is that what we're doing? We're just giving up the whole facade of organic opinions on this stuff, Andre.
Oh yeah, no, these guys, I'm assigning you these positions whether you like it or not. So whether you believe this player is the player of the year, you have to debate on that person's side. Regardless of your opinion, we could discuss it a little bit afterwards. And this is obviously one that's been a little bit discussed in the disc golf world. So, Matt, whether you like it or not, you're on Team Paul Macbeth. And
good.
And
he's
Jesse,
the best player of the year.
You're on Ricky Wysocki's side. And this is just...
I want a Joel Freeman. What?
Yeah.
No.
We're not talking about the best round of the year. Maybe that's for another time. But
well, then I'd have Eagle McMahon.
Eagle McMahon? Well, we'll leave. This is another discussion topic.
Yeah.
That's
Joel Freeman versus Eagle McMahon European Open. That's round of the year talk. But yeah.
Player of the year, Ricky Wysocki versus Paul. You each have a minute. I will have a timer on my phone. And which one of you guys wants to go first?
I'll go first so I can get some data out there, because I have a memory like a sieve, so I don't remember most of the season, so I'm not going to be able to pull specific examples at all. But
all right. So ready? Timer starts now.
Paul's short. Paul's really, really short. Ricky's not short. No. No, just looking at some of the results, like obviously Paul in Worlds is a cool thing, but for the rest of it, like Ricky's number one in Elite Series. He's the highest rated. He's the second in wins. He's got more podium finishes, and he's first in the Elite Series overall. I don't think there's much a question this year that it was like full-blown Rick show. And I think like the way Paul ended up getting player of the year, in my opinion, probably is a little bit like fake. I know he tacked on like 2 extra A-B tiers at the end of the year when nobody else was playing. That counts for points for these calculations, which, when everyone else is sleeping, I guess good for him for grinding, but it's not in a similarly competitive event. And
that's time. Nice try. We'll get to that point later. All right. Matt, you're on the clock.
All right. Look, height aside, I'm just looking at his year here. If you're the world champion right away, that's all the argument that I need, is that he's the best player in the world. But he started off the tour with 2 wins, Memorial and Waco. He came in second at Jonesboro in a playoff to Calvin. I think we all remember that. But his foot slipped. So, I count that as a win in my books. He came in second to the most ludicrous performance that we've ever seen in disc golf at the European Open, to an Eagle McMahon that just parachuted his backhand in for 1 tournament. So that doesn't really count. I think that counts as a win too. Came in second at Ledgestone. I don't remember the details on that one. But look, if you have one hole to play and you get to pick one player to play
Time.
that hole,
Time. No
who
more.
are you picking? It's Paul McBeth. Case closed. And he's not that short.
He's
All right.
really short, dude. Have you met him in real life?
It's like 5'8", isn't
No,
Yeah. He's like 5'8", exactly.
Yeah.
Actually,
it's not
Okay.
that short. How tall are you guys?
he? I'm 5'9", so.
6'1".
Okay, I don't know. Both of you guys made compelling points, and it's hard to not bring my opinion into this.
So much for impartial debate night.
I think as far as the debate goes, I think Matt wins the debate with Paul McBeth. But my opinion, Ricky was the player of the year. And what's your guys' honest opinions on this? And not okay, just for context for our listeners who don't know, Paul McBeth won the PDGA Player of the Year, and Ricky Wysocki won the Pro Tour Player of the Year. Yeah, what's your guys' opinions? Who was actually the overall Player of the Year?
Ricky Wysocki, Paul, is short. No, but for real, I think this was like the year of the Rick. And the stats I was reading off are as true as it gets, right? USDGC, Rick got 7th, Paul got 4th. Worlds, Ricky 11th, Paul 1st. Champions Cup, Rick got 2nd, Paul got 9th. Elite Series, Ricky wins overall, Paul gets 3rd. Ratings, Rick's 1st, Paul 2nd, but it's very close again. Wins, major wins, Ricky gets 3, Paul gets 2. Podium finishes in these events, Rick has 6, Paul has 5. Top 10s, Rick has 11, Paul has 12. It's very, very close for sure.
I just realized one thing that you didn't even bring up, Matt, at all was that he won Worlds.
I think winning Worlds was the first point that
That's
I made.
the first thing he said.
Thank you very much. Roll the tape back.
I was probably too focused
Rewind
on the
that
clock.
podcast 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, Ricky was the most consistent player from start to finish. Like going into any tournament, I had him in, my Skip Ace draft, and boy, was that ever a good pick because he finished really well. That being said, if I had to bet on one player in one round under the most pressure, I think Paul McBeth is still the best player in the world. He shows up at majors. He does I was watching Worlds, that final round, and I was talking with a friend, and we were just talking about how, man, when majors happen, like Paul always does something insane. And at USDGC, it was, hitting that 50-footer on 17, and then he hit that 69-foot putt, which I am dubbing the nice putt, by the way. I don't think it's been trademarked yet. But his putt on, I think it was hole 17 at Worlds, he just does things that you would never expect anyone to do under the most pressure-packed situations. So I think Ricky had a better year, though. I would probably give it up for that.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Matt. I think it was the year of the Rick a little bit, but if you had to take a sample of the last 5 years, roll the dice on a random course anywhere in the world and drop Paul and Rick there, and you had to bet your life on who's winning, I was probably going to say Paul. But yeah, this year definitely Rick for me.
Yeah, cool. Consensus.
You have that timer in your hand again, and it's making me nervous. What are we doing now?
We're doing that PO side.
I shouldn't. Also, to my defense of this debate, I probably shouldn't have spent a quarter of my time saying Paul is short. Otherwise, I probably could have wedged a couple points in there.
I think that probably damaged it a little bit. So we're going FPO side. For context, Paige Pierce won the PDGA Player of the Year, and Kristen Tatar won the Disc Golf Pro Tour Player of the Year. You gotta. We'll let Matt go first on this one.
Like I said, memory like a sieve.
Matt, you have the honor of representing Kristen Tatar in this debate, which means Paige Pierce goes to Jesse, regardless of your opinions. And Matt, you are on the clock.
Okay. Ask anybody who had the best year in FPO this year, and every single person on the face of the earth is going to say Kristen Tatar. She went from being a name that people know and cheer for to being the name in women's disc golf around the world. She didn't finish off the podium the entire year of PDGA tournaments. That's unheard of. It's unbelievable. Those graces are selling like hotcakes. I'm not even going to use the full minute. Everybody knows Kristen Tatar is the best player in the entire world this year.
All right. Matt, Alexa, stop his argument at 20 seconds. And that is...
She didn't finish off the podium. She was on the podium every event that she played. Could you imagine that?
You already
Even
conceded,
like in
you already
Paige
conceded,
Pierce's most
you already
dominant
conceded
years.
your last few seconds. Your argument is...
I take it back. I claim my time back, Mr.
Your
Speaker.
argument is officially over.
Have you ever seen Paige Pierce or Katrina Allen finish an entire season on the podium?
Yes, Paige Pierce, the last half decade. Paige Pierce, the last
All right,
half
and
decade.
Paige Pierce.
She's had off years.
Going now.
Yeah, overall, you're right. Kristen didn't finish off the podium, but when it counted, Paige pulled no punches and tuned her up. Champions Cup, tuned her up, first place. Also tied with Kristen in wins. So that's 4 wins apiece. And on their top 5s and podiums, there's only a difference of like 2, which means, yeah, Paige got 4th twice. And in the grand scheme of things, if that makes the biggest difference in the world to you, then sure, Kristen's better. But Paige took a lot of time off again. Paige has been an advocate for mental health, stopping burnout, women's sports. Kristen Tatar, have you ever even heard her speak before? No, she hasn't. She's winning on the course, but she's not winning out there in the world. She's not doing much for women's disc golf in the same way, and I think the whole package of Paige Pierce still makes her player of the year. I yield my time to the chair.
Jesse also yields his time at 6 seconds. Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. Jesse brought the stats. So I feel like I have to side with Jesse. I mean, Matt, I agree with you. I think it was 100% I think it was 100% Kristen Tatar. As a whole, I feel like she just did incredible, and I feel like if she was over here and uninjured for the duration of the tour and played in as many events as Paige did this year, I think it would be without a question that she would have won the PDGA Player of the Year as well. But, I mean, for argument's sake, just stating that she is 100% the best player in the world isn't enough for a debate. So, what do you guys think?
I'm looking at the stats in front of me, and the stats are actually better for Kristen. I just cherry picked the ones that help a little bit more. No, I think this is undoubtedly Kristen's year.
Yeah, it's a coming out party.
Kristen Tatar is currently rated 988. We were all talking about Paige Pierce breaking that 1,000-point ceiling not long ago, and that it was no question she would be the first and possibly only player to do it. And now all of a sudden, Kristen Tatar is like 13 ratings points higher, 15 ratings points higher, and has thrown multiple 1,000 rated rounds in her last few tournaments. Like, yeah, what a year. And being injured too. Like, yeah, she missed some time, she missed some tournaments, and maybe that helps you with the mental health side of things instead of being on the grind of a full year tour. But she still had to come back from an injury that, prevented her from throwing a lot of backhands, which is a bread and butter shot for most people. So, unbelievable year.
Yeah, no, really spectacular from Kristen. I think she kind of set a new standard for FPO. But in Paige's defense, I think she's kind of burnt out, really, like she is the best and she knows she's the best. And I think Paige's biggest struggle right now is going to be finding motivation to get back on the horse and take it back from Kristen, because she's got the ball for sure. All that other stuff that I said, Kristen is quiet and she's not much on the like advertising and social front, but the play speaks for itself, I think.
I think she's up for Sports Person of the Year
in Estonia.
Estonia.
I voted for her.
Yeah.
Did you?
Are you allowed?
Yeah, I got Google Chrome. Asked me if I want to translate from Estonian to English. I go down and I click on Kristen Tatar.
So there you go.
Here's a fun fact. You know, you can fact check me on this too, because I'll give you the truth of this. When you translate from Estonian to English, Kristen's last name means buckwheat. I voted for Kristen Buckwheat for Sports Player of the Year for Estonia.
That's an interesting fun fact. There you go.
I voted
Good
for the
stuff.
ski jumper.
Then get out of here.
I can't name another Estonian professional athlete.
Yeah.
To be fair.
Silverlot.
Oh no, that's not true. Is he Estonian?
Yes.
Katie Tati, I believe she's
Yeah,
Estonian.
right. It just that while we were kind of talking about a little bit of news from Tatar, Paige Pierce, I think, also got engaged this Christmas. So her and Alyssa are officially going to tie the knot, which is awesome to see. I also like, speaking about just taking time away from the sport, I think, and this is just a personal observation, I feel like she spent a lot of time on her relationship this year with Alyssa, and I feel like that was part of her taking time away from the sport, was to work on her personal life, and that's huge. And so, yeah, congratulations to them too. That's big news. Very excited for that.
Yeah, they look so happy
it's
when I see the Instagram reels and they're like dancing around the kitchen and talking about their new backyard stuff, and I'm just like, how wholesome.
It's totally understandable that if you're happy for the first time in your life, that maybe disc golf might take a bit of a backseat for a little while.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the sense I get from Paige Pierce, is like, oh, there's a whole other world of things that aren't throwing frisbees. This is great.
Yeah, because she won Am Worlds and then was like doing it ever since, right? So I think Paige has kind of been, since she was 18, living disc golf. And yeah, if it's all you've known, sometimes the grass is greener on the other side if you've never jumped over the fence, you know?
And she carried that banner. Like, there in the FPO division especially, like, it seems like there's one player that kind of carries that banner for 4, 5, 6, 7 years at a time.
Yeah.
And that's got to be a lot of pressure for that one player, you know, whoever it is, whether it's Juliana Korver, whether it's Paige Pierce, you know, like, you showing up and being expected to win every single tournament you play for several years, like, that's got to be exhausting. So she's got the sport up to where there's, you know, 4 or 5 players that can win on any given Sunday. And the sport is better for it. And I think she's earned a bit of a breather.
Yeah.
I think so,
is Kristen Tatar here without Paige Pierce? It is, like you said, the Juliana Korver, the Valerie Jenkins era when Kristen would have seen the game. Based on the PDJ numbers I'm looking at, probably not. So
I don't think so.
Yeah. If it is, I'm not going that way. I'm gonna say if it is a passing of the torch, whatever. But
Paige Pierce is still going to be.
She's still Paige Pierce.
She won the PDGA Player of the Year, so she's
Pierce.
here still.
Fierce. Yeah. I'm sure we'll see it again.
It's going to be exciting. I'm probably more excited, in anticipation for the FPO, just to see the storylines that come out of this next year, because, you know, can Kristen keep it up? Can Paige reclaim the throne? And you got, you know, hot shots like Valerie Mondahano. I actually really like her game, so it'd be really interesting.
The end of our Euros, if they can play a full season and if they do have an impact, and when they do get a full season in, and Katrina Allen, I think, had like the worst start of her career this year after her switch to DGA. I think it was the first time she'd missed cash since like 2014 or something like that. She finished well and she had some great showings, but let's see if she can fully bounce back.
She won Vegas.
Did she?
Katrina Allen did, yeah. She beat Paige.
That's right at the beginning of the year, so maybe I'm talking out of my hindquarters.
No, you're right. You are right, though. I think she had that one tournament, and then she kind of fell off the map a little bit. But
she had an up and down year. It was like she was dominating or she was scuffing it.
The Paige versus Katrina Allen, that era is done. It's now an open field, and anyone can take any week, I think. So
I think it's good. I think it's healthy for the division because, you know, Paige was shaping up to be like a Ken Climo figure that just held down the whole thing for forever. where MPO was starting to get a lot more competitive. Now we'll probably see that in FPO, and like I said, very healthy, very good for the sport.
Yeah, just kind of bringing this back to the Canadian side. Hopefully this year we get to see more Canadians signing up for tournaments too. I think I checked the Vegas registration a little while ago. I think I saw a few Canadians on there, so it's kind of cool to see some people.
Yeah, that's where Julie Mullins had her breakout performance. So hopefully see her down there again. Chantel Badinsky probably playing more. I haven't checked in on any of her stuff online.
We'll get in touch with some of those players, and we'll kind of see what their years are doing, and maybe there's some Canadian sponsorship announcements that are yet to come out. So, all very fun off-season stuff.
Please, somebody.
Yeah. Lone Star Disc.
Ranger team. Get my 4 Frisbees.
Yeah, so I think before we wrap up the podcast, we just want to thank you for listening. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube if you want to see our pretty faces and see what we're talking about. You get a bonus. You get bonus because we were talking about the disc, which just so happened to have a few of them, so you get to see the comparison of profiles and stuff like that. Definitely worth checking out over on YouTube. And thank you to our Patreon community. There's not a lot of you, but we love you. If you're interested in becoming a patron, go to patreon.com/parkpro for as little as $1.50 a month. The way it works is you pay per creation. So let's say, for example, we release this podcast, we will post it on Patreon first. That will be $1.50. It'll automatically come out of your account. You can lose track of it, but you can set limits. So if you only want to spend $1.50 a month, you can set that limit, and that's how you can support us. Every little bit helps. We got this new mic right here. We got another one coming, and hopefully we can sort of level up here. So
yeah, that might cost 12 years of you subscribing for $1.50 on Patreon. So please, God, subscribe.
And on that note, we also really want to thank our sponsor, Disc Golf Park. They're awesome. We were kind of been chatting with Matt a little bit about getting some events going on in the spring at some courses that involve Disc Golf Park baskets and some new courses and very exciting stuff. So
Andre keeps staring at me because I usually do the Disc Golf Park plug, and I'm not going to do it the same way this time. But I will say they do make great course equipment, baskets, tee pads, and signs. They have got a sales rep for every region in Canada, so reach out to your local one if you have any course needs, and or anybody else that might just need a basket or two, because they do sell portable baskets as well. Get yourself a premium practice basket for the rest of the winter and get rid of that nasty one that's half rusted you've got for $100 out of the back of. Cut the rest of this. It's been a great time. Good night.
We don't cut stuff. This is the new podcast. Nothing gets cut.
No.
Are you saying that if I just have 40 acres of land somewhere and I don't know a thing about disc golf course design, I can just call up somebody at Disc Golf Park and then there will be a design and all the equipment, everything? They take care of everything?
Wow, Matt, I'm glad you asked. Now I can ramble some more. Yeah, like I said, there's a designer in every region. I know we have got one in British Columbia, one in the Rocky Mountains that services Alberta as well. We have got a duo of designers and installers in Ontario that are based in Toronto. And we also have Ben Smith doing designs out in the Maritimes. And yeah, they'll come, they'll look at your land. I know Ben Smith in particular, great guy, huge background in landscaping and a lot of connections in sustainable forestry. So if you're out there and you are a guy with 40 acres worth of land, he can come there, make informed decisions about what trees should come down for both safety and the health of the forested areas on your property, and design a kick-butt disc golf course at the same time with great equipment from Disc Golf Park.
The world could use more disc golf courses. So
absolutely.
I think with that, I think that'll be a wrap. Should we get Matt to sign off again? It's the new tradition.
I like when Matt's
going to be the sign off guy.
All right, guys. From all of us here at Park Pro, just whatever you do, let's just all right. Come on, go.
Perfect.
We'll get it.